Let me begin with a question that cuts straight into the part of you that's done being overlooked. Have you ever noticed that the turning point in a man's life isn't when he finally finds the right words, but when he finally stops speaking at all? The day he stops explaining, stops justifying, stops trying to convince someone of his worth, and instead pulls his energy back into himself. No drama, no big speech, no performance, just a quiet decision to step out of her world and step fully into his own. She never plans for that version of you. She expects emotion. She expects one last call, one last paragraph, one last attempt to fix what's already broken. She expects the door to stay cracked open so she can come and go as she pleases. What she never expects is your silence. She never imagines you will outgrow the man who waited, who hoped, who hurt for her. And when it finally hits her, when she looks at her phone and realizes the man she thought would always reach out has truly, completely stopped, that moment doesn't just sting her ego. It shakes the foundation of her certainty. Your absence becomes heavier than your presence ever was. Your silence stops being nothing and starts becoming the truth she can't outrun. Before we go deeper into this transformation, do one thing for yourself. Hit like, subscribe to Stoic Station, and start this journey now. In the comments, drop a number and be honest with yourself. Drop a 1 if you're still the man who explains, chases, and waits. Drop a 2 if you're ready to become the man whose silence speaks for him, calm, strong, and self-possessed. Because what happens next, the moment your name stops appearing on her screen, is where everything truly begins to break. And finally, to rebuild. 1. The silence that hits harder than words. There's a moment she never prepared for, the moment your name stops appearing on her screen, not delayed, not infrequent, just gone. That absence hits with a precision louder than any argument, any explanation, any goodbye. And it's in that quiet space where everything she thought she understood begins to unravel. Men in their late 30s often carry a quiet burden, the belief that silence signals weakness. That pulling back means you didn't fight hard enough, didn't hold on long enough, didn't try to keep the connection alive. But the truth is harsher and far more liberating. You didn't fail because you went silent. You failed yourself when you stayed too available for too long. You mistook loyalty for obligation, and she mistook your consistency for something that would never disappear. When you were still calling, she had options. When you opened your heart, she had time. When you reached out, she had control. She didn't know the very silence she dismissed would one day become the loudest sound she'd ever hear. Because the day you stop calling isn't the day you stop caring. It's the day you finally start caring about yourself more than the chaos she brought into your life. And that quiet shift is a shockwave, not because it's dramatic, but because it's disciplined. She scrolls through old messages thinking, he used to reply instantly. Now there's nothing, and nothing is a pain she can't define, can't argue with, can't hide from. Silence exposes the truths she ran from, the truth of how much she depended on your reassurance, the truth of how deeply she believed you would always be the one who reached out first. Silence becomes the mirror she avoided for months, and here is where strength blooms. Your silence forces her to confront your value without you lifting a single finger. You don't plead, you don't chase, you don't negotiate your worth. You choose stillness, not as a weapon, but as a boundary. And in that boundary, she finally witnesses the version of you she took for granted. That's the first moment the story turns. Not when you spoke, not when you explained, but when you finally chose not to. Because silence doesn't just affect her heart, it attacks her certainty. And certainty is the one thing she never imagined losing. And this is exactly where the unraveling begins. 2. The empty space she can't escape. She can ignore your text, but she cannot ignore the void when your texts stop coming. That's the part she never anticipated. She believed silence would be her weapon, her advantage, her way of maintaining control. She never imagined silence would turn against her the moment you stopped being the one who carried the connection. Because for a man, silence is control. But for a woman who grew comfortable with your presence, silence becomes a vacuum that pulls her inward whether she wants it or not. Suddenly, her entire routine shifts. She refreshes her screen without realizing it. She checks her notifications more than she ever admits. She waits for a vibration that never arrives. And that empty space where your attention used to sit, steady, predictable, reassuring, begins to swallow her confidence piece by piece. She doesn't know why she keeps reaching for her phone. She doesn't understand why a part of her chest feels heavier. She only knows something that once felt guaranteed is now missing. That's when her mind begins asking questions she never thought she'd face. Why isn't he reaching out? Did I push him too far? Has he moved on? Is he happier without me? Your absence becomes a riddle she can't solve, a puzzle that keeps rearranging itself every hour she goes without hearing from you. The certainty she once had dissolves, and in its place grows a quiet panic she tries everything to suppress. And that's when the emotional spiral begins. What once felt peaceful, your predictability, now feels threatening. Your silence becomes a test she didn't know she was taking, and with every unanswered hope, every moment of quiet, she feels like she's failing questions she never studied for. Silence, the thing she once used to keep her distance, now becomes the very thing closing in around her. But here's the truth she resisted for so long. By stepping back, you give her the one thing she spent the entire relationship avoiding: self-reflection. She sees the comfort she lost. She feels the security she took for granted. She realizes the space you occupied wasn't small. It was the anchor of her emotional balance. And now that anchor is gone, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quietest, most undeniable truth: you stopped calling. And when the anchor disappears, something bigger happens. The power shifts. 3. The power shift. She never saw coming. A man's silence does what his words never could. It flips the entire dynamic in a single quiet moment. She once believed you needed her validation just to stay grounded. She mistook your emotional openness for emotional dependence. She read your vulnerability as weakness, not realizing it was strength under restraint. As long as you were the one reaching out, she controlled the rhythm. She chose when to reply, when to pull away, when to engage. She danced comfortably only because you kept the music playing. But when the music stops, when you step back, when you disappear, the entire dance floor collapses beneath her. She suddenly realizes you are not predictable anymore, and nothing shakes a woman more than losing control over a man she thought she had mapped out completely. She replays every moment believing she still had the upper hand, but now her assumptions crumble one by one. Your silence becomes the first undeniable sign that she misjudged your strength. It is the moment she sees the truth she never wanted to admit. You were never the dependent one. She was dependent on your consistency. And now, for the first time, you set the pace. You decide the distance. You hold the power, not through force, not through manipulation, but through discipline and self-possession. Your restraint disrupts her certainty. Your calmness exposes her chaos. And she feels that shift long before she ever speaks it out loud. It's subtle. It's sharp. It's a truth she cannot undo, no matter how she rationalizes it, because losing control is only the beginning. And when a woman realizes she no longer holds the emotional advantage, the next feeling rises fast and without mercy: fear. 4. The moment she sees you, happy without her. There comes a day she checks your life and sees joy that doesn't include her. It might be a single picture, a short video, a moment you didn't think twice about posting, but to her it lands like a sudden blow. This is the moment most men underestimate. You think she won't care. You think she already moved on. But women feel the energy of a man who's healing faster than they ever felt his heartbreak. They sense progress long before you announce it, and they recognize peace even when you're not trying to show it. She sees you smiling in a photo, an unforced, calm, unbothered smile. You're out with friends, surrounded by people who value you. Or maybe you're at the gym, sweat on your skin, discipline in your eyes. Maybe you're simply rebuilding your world, brick by brick, day by day. And suddenly, the assumptions she relied on begin to crack. He's supposed to be hurting. He used to need me. Why does he look lighter now? That's the moment her ego fractures under the weight of your progress. She realizes she built her confidence on the belief that you would always be emotionally anchored to her. But now she sees something she never expected. You look free. And nothing terrifies a woman more than seeing the man who once chased her finally outrunning the pain she caused. It burns in the places she thought were untouchable. It stings in the parts of her identity she never questioned. Your growth forces her to confront the version of herself she tried to hide. She wonders if someone else is inspiring that smile, if another woman is benefiting from the vulnerability she dismissed, if the peace she's seeing is coming from someone new, or from the man you've become without her. Your happiness becomes the message she never expected to receive. You don't need her to be whole. You don't need her presence to feel grounded. You don't need her approval to stand tall. That realization doesn't just bruise her pride, it rewrites the entire narrative she told herself about you. She thought you'd fall apart. Instead, she watches you rise, quietly, consistently, powerfully. And when a woman sees a man rising, she always comes back to see if the door is still open. 5. When she reaches out and meets a new version of you. Her first comeback is never dramatic. It's subtle, almost unnoticeable to anyone who hasn't lived through the storm. A like on something old. A silent story view that lingers longer than it should. A late-night hey sent at the hour when clarity is low and regret rises. These moments aren't random. They're the early signs of a woman reaching out. Not for you, but for the old version of you. The version who used to need her. The version who used to answer immediately. The version who made her feel important without her having to do anything. She expects the same softness. She expects the same excitement. She expects you to fold the moment she offers even the slightest hint of attention. She believes she can slip back into your world effortlessly, the same way she slipped out. She's not reaching out because she's ready to rebuild. She's reaching out because she's checking whether the old dynamic still exists, whether the door is still cracked open. But instead of meeting the man she left behind, she runs into someone she never expected. You reply calmly, not instantly. You answer with clarity, not emotion. Your words are intentional, measured, grounded. You no longer treat her presence as a lifeline or her attention as a reward. You don't bend, you don't rush. You don't rearrange your world to accommodate her sudden curiosity. You've changed, not loudly, not theatrically, but in the quiet hours when no one was watching. And that's when the panic sets in, not because you're cold, but because you're stable. Stability in a man is intimidating to a woman who relied on your insecurity to feel secure herself. Self-possessed men scare women who built their power on emotional imbalance. Your calmness forces her to confront her own chaos, and for the first time, she feels the imbalance she once used against you shifting back toward her. You don't punish her. You don't brag. You don't show off your transformation. You simply remain grounded, focused on your path, not her validation. This is the version of you she never expected to meet. The version she can't manipulate. The version she can't predict. The version she can't read no matter how hard she tries. And in that realization, something breaks quietly inside her. She realizes she didn't lose the old you. She lost access to the new you, and losing access leads her straight into the phase she feared most, the phase she hoped would never come, the internal storm she can no longer outrun. 6. The internal storm she can no longer hide. When she realizes she can't pull you back, when every attempt to test your boundaries dissolves into your calm, grounded silence, the real emotional battle begins inside her. This is the part she never expected. She once believed you'd always be available, that no matter how far she pushed, you'd still find your way back. But now she's alone with the consequences of her own decisions, and the silence she used to weaponize has turned inward on her. Her thoughts become a storm she can no longer outrun. Curiosity hits first. What is he doing? Who is he with? Then regret slips in, soft at the edges, but sharp where it matters. Why did I take him for granted? And finally, fear unfolds in the deepest part of her ego. Is another woman appreciating what I ignored? These questions follow her into the night, live in the quiet moments of her day, and echo whenever she sees your life moving forward without her. What hurts her most isn't that you disappeared. It's that you're thriving without her. Every sign of your progress, your discipline, your peace, your confidence becomes a reminder of why she lost you in the first place. She sees you healthier. She sees you sharper. She sees you becoming the man she secretly wished you'd become when she still had access to you. But now that version of you belongs to another future, another path, another woman who might witness the strength she took for granted. And that truth breaks her in the same silent, devastating way she once broke you. Your silence was never punishment. It was evolution. A line she cannot cross anymore. You didn't step back to make her chase. You stepped back to rebuild what she dismantled. You didn't go silent to win her. You went silent to win yourself. And now she sees the cost of her choices. Not because you reminded her, not because you lectured her, but because your life makes the truth undeniable. And all of this, the storm, the regret, the fear, the clarity, leads to one final truth, one that changes both of you forever. 7. When she finally understands what your silence really meant. She expected you to chase. She expected you to break first. She expected you to return because you always did. But this time, you didn't. And that is the moment everything she believed about you, about the dynamic, about her own importance, begins to collapse. She confused your loyalty with neediness. She mistook your softness for weakness. She believed the door to your heart would always be left slightly open, just enough for her to walk in whenever she pleased. But now she sees the truth she never wanted to face. Your silence wasn't anger, it wasn't revenge, and it wasn't some emotional game to get her attention. It was something far more powerful. A man choosing himself. She realizes too late that you weren't fragile, you were patient. And patience is not weakness. Patience is strength under control, strength held quietly until the moment it is finally needed. The moment she lost access to you was the same moment you gained access to yourself. And this is the pain she will carry long after the breakup fades. She didn't lose you to another woman. She lost you to the man you became, a man she was never prepared to meet, a man forged by discipline, clarity, and solitude. A man who finally understood his worth, not because she validated it, but because he discovered it on his own. A man who doesn't call again because he no longer needs old wounds to define who he is. Your rise is not dramatic, it's not noisy, it's not fueled by bitterness. You rise quietly, you rebuild steadily, you reclaim your center with stoic precision, calm, grounded, untouchable. You choose a life aligned with your values, your peace, your next chapter. And while you move forward, she is left with the very silence she created, a silence you've learned not just to endure, but to thrive in. She finally understands what your silence really meant. It wasn't about her losing you, it was about you finding you. And once a man finds himself, once he steps into the strength he abandoned for love, there is no returning to who he was. And that truth is the one she can never escape. Brother, remember this: you don't need closure from the past when you're fully committed to building your future. Peace isn't something you wait for, it's a choice you make. Strength isn't something you stumble into, it's a discipline you practice every single day. And the silence you chose, that silence is the evidence of both. So stay disciplined, stay focused, stay grounded in the man you're becoming, not the man you used to be. Your growth is not loud, but it is undeniable. Your path is not easy, but it is yours. If this message brought you clarity, like the video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and comment below which moment hit you the hardest. Help another brother find his way by sharing what you learned here, and carry this one question with you into your next chapter. The question that defines the man you will become, now that she realizes you'll never call again. Who are you becoming without the weight of her shadow holding you back?